Good morning, boys and girls, and welcome back to the southern wing of the Stink Bug Works. Before you are a bunch of parts, and if you look closely, it's a bunch of small parts. Now, what would I be doing with a bunch of small parts? Well, let's go back to this. This thing has a geared motor, kind of like this geared motor, and I talked about this yesterday. Ed Huey, back in the days, and I'm talking, 1970s, when radio controls had just gone from vacuum tubes to transistors, and you could actually hold them in your hand. Ed Huey was racing boats. And the only thing available then was car motors and NiCad batteries. And Ed quickly found out that car motors just didn't have the oomph to push anything. And if you wanted to go more than, 6 or 7 cells, if you wanted to do 12 cells, you would burn up a car motor, so you had to go to expensive German motors, Plettenbergs and Kellers and the like. And somewhere, in probably 1990s, Astro Bob started making motors of that equivalent size, and you could get mega motors from were they Poland or Czech? I don't remember, but you could get mega motors. You could get the Gropner Ultra motors, which were rebranded Plettenbergs, but that's how you got into higher cell counts. Well, Ed Huey discovered that, with a car motor and you're lugging the thing down with a prop, you're not operating up at an efficient RPM. So Ed quickly figured out that you could take a car motor that you normally run on 6 cells, put 2 of them on a gear drive, and run that on 12 cells. And so he found a gear drive equivalent to all those expensive German motors. They may not have, Ed may not have had any access to those motors. So gearboxes became popular in boats. And then, of course, now that you have brushless motors of any KV you want and any KT you want and any size can, there's really no point for gears, because I can find a single brushless motor that has the same output characteristics as this shaft right here. This shaft. I mean, the motor and the gears, I could find a brushless motor that does exactly the same thing per volt as this output shaft does. So that's why gears aren't necessary. But, but sometimes if you want to pack a lot of power into a small system, look at the F5B gliders. They use a relatively small motor and a 4-to-1 gearbox on the thing, and they allow the motor to spin up, and they turn a real big prop and they go real fast. So if this works out as well as I hope it does, I am planning for the follow-up. Now, I thought about using this, but I'm going to save this for something else. This won't exactly work in my next project. My next project, yes. I teased the other day that I bought something from MHZ, and it arrived in less than a week. It arrived in a matter of days. they must have given it to the captain of the airline that was flying from Germany to Los Angeles, and he drove it down here. I don't know any other way it could have got here that fast. But I'm thinking of a gear drive in that boat. And I'm thinking now, this is a 2030 motor, and it's 5,200 kV, but these can be had in much higher kVs. And Steve's little 707 motors, the 7 Series motors, are about this big. A little different bolt pattern. You remember I put 707 motor in the little, what the hell is it? The Mozilla 400. I'll run that one of the next times out. And I ran that direct drive, had to run a real small prop, like a cut down 27 millimeter. And I got a reasonable KV. I got a KV of around 3,000. But I could conceivably get one of Steve's little 707 motors of some stupid high RPM. And the nice thing about Steve's motor, as opposed to these 2030s, the 2030s have a 2 millimeter shaft, and the only pinion gears I can find are press-on gears, and I'm limited in size depending on the pitch of the gears. I'm going to use a 0.4 module, which is a German gearing. This is 64 pitch here. This is Imperial. But and the only reason I'm using 0.4 was that was the only pinions I could find to go on here. But if I use one of Steve's motors, I can get it with either a 2 millimeter shaft or a 3 millimeter shaft. And I think I might go with the 3 millimeter shaft, which will allow me to use 64 pitch gears. I'll have to look at my selection of gears, because here's another thing too. I have a bunch of these style gears, you know, with the brass hub and the plastic gear. I like these as drive gears, nice and quiet. And they're all in 3 millimeters. So I've got a collection of 3 millimeter shafts of varying lengths, and I have 3 millimeter bearings of various sizes. I've got, you know, the larger diameter ones, the smaller diameter ones. So I can make a cool little gearbox for this motor, although I don't think Steve's motor has the same mounting hole. I think Steve's is a 3-hole, or 2 that are really close together. So I'll have to look at that again. Small little speed control. I want to keep it light. In fact, I may take the plastic cover off of this thing just to shed that weight. Little tiny lightweight servos. I've waterproofed them. I've glued them together, and I put grease up in the gear train. And get a load of this now. The next thing. I found this on eBay. This is a stainless steel lined stuffing tube, and this is a 3 millimeter shaft. And they actually included a 3 millimeter CNC prop. That's why I asked the other day, does anybody know where you can get 3 millimeter props? And a little tiny 3 millimeter strut with a ball bearing in it. This is a little ball bearing strut. This is a high quality little 3 millimeter setup here. And I found these plastic props that, you know, look like this stock, but if you cut them down and massage them a little bit, you know, this looks like it will be a workable prop. And remember, I'm not putting 1,000 watts through this thing. I'm putting 100 watts through it. So a plastic prop may be the way to go. So there's some thinking on props. With a gear drive, you can change the motor's KV to suit the prop rather than changing the prop to suit the motor's KV. Then get a load of this. This is probably 20 years old. This is Joe Solinger. I don't know if he's still with us, but Joe Solinger at one time, a long time ago, made micro hardware. And check this out. I've been saving this for the right occasion. Look at this cool little rudder. And note that the pushrod connection is right perpendicular to the pivot, so there's no differential throw. And this arm can go on either side. This can flip over and go on either side. You do have to sharpen it. This is just a piece of stainless steel. But there is Joe Solinger's micro rudder. Now, I've been teasing you and teasing you and teasing you. Oh, and I got all the instructions for that, the little speed control I showed you. I think this will work just fine. What am I thinking about putting a motor this size with a gear drive in? Well, boys and girls, look at here. Look at here. Look at here. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Whoop! There you go. I have one of these already. I have it done up in John Deere colors. I got a farmer wearing a MAGA hat driving it. And it's got a little smokestack coming up out of here, and it's green and yellow and says John Deere on it. This one I'm going to do a little differently. And this is where you, my viewing audience, get to come in. Look at this. It's a perfect blank slate. It's a blank piece of paper. What do you suppose I should do for a livery? Now, the full-size boats were about 30 feet, 32 feet. This is 15 inches. That makes this roughly 1/24th scale for the Unlimiteds. But remember now, they ran smaller versions of this with V8 motors and even smaller versions with inline 4 motors and even smaller versions with little tiny outboard motors, the Neilers. So hydroplanes came in a number of sizes, so I could do a semi-scale of a smaller hydroplane, a 1/18th scale V8 engine looks about right for this in the smaller class as opposed to Unlimited, the V8 class. It looks about the right scale to pull it off. Or I could do it totally cartoonish. I could do Homie the Clown. So there's food for thought if anybody has an idea. Now, this is not the lightest MHZ hull I've ever had. This one's a bit stout. I think they put a little extra cloth in it, and that'll actually do just fine. The hull's real rigid, but all these hydroplanes like this will have a little bit of flex in this direction. And if you look at this little web here, the top is not bonded to the bottom. There's actually a little space in there. And so I'm going to take a piece of carbon fiber and glue it in there like that between the sponsons, and that's going to like quadruple the rigidity of this thing with just one little piece. And so that's going to be the structural mods I do on this, is just that one little piece here. And that'll still leave room for the gearbox, leave room to get at the batteries. So what do you think of my project and my planning? You got any ideas on how to paint this white blank slate? Until next time, boys and girls, jet out.